Welcome to this virtual public information open house for the proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange improvements, which will provide more efficient access to the new Bryan County megasite development and the surrounding area. I'm Kyle Collins with GDOT Communication, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. On behalf of Georgia DOT and the entire project team, thank you for joining us today. Keep in mind that these are preliminary design concepts and are not yet final, so all the materials that you see today are subject to change. One of the big ways you can make your voice heard is by submitting comments about these transportation improvement projects, and we'll explain all the ways you can do that later in this session. But first, let's go through the tips to navigate this live virtual event. This is the 1.5-hour virtual open house. For everyone's benefit, we have a few ground rules to ensure we maximize your time and answer your questions accurately and thoughtfully. During today's session, you will remain on mute. However, throughout this session, you can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A feature. We urge you to keep your questions concise and specific to these 3 projects. Also, please use appropriate language. We will begin this virtual open house with a pre-recorded presentation delivered by Ron Nelson with the Georgia Department of Transportation. After the presentation, we will read your questions for the project team to respond to. Keep in mind that we may group similar questions together. We will not repeat questions and answers until we have been through all questions. If we don't get to your question or the question involves a more detailed technical response than we're able to provide during this time frame, do not worry. We'll respond back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Please be sure to include your contact information in the chat so that we can follow up with you if needed after this meeting. So again, please leave us your contact information so we can follow up. Please note that all comments submitted will be part of the official public record. Because this is a virtual open house, it's important that you're using a strong Wi-Fi or reliable wired connection. But if you get disconnected, you can always log back into the session. If there are any public officials joining us today, please send us your name and office in the chat for our records. Don't worry about memorizing these tips. We'll post them again later in the session. For your convenience, we have set up closed captioning in multiple languages. To turn it on, simply navigate to the bottom right of your screen to the closed caption icon. Click it to turn captions on or off. To change the language, click the gear icon next to it and select Captions/Subtitles to choose the language. At this time, we're going to start a video presentation featuring Ron Nelson, Project Manager with Georgia DOT's Office of Alternative Delivery. The video presentation will provide a great overview of the need and purpose, and offer specifics about the proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and the I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange improvement projects. Take it away, Ron.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining us today to learn more about the proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange improvements. Let's get started. Before we get into the details of this package of proposed projects in Bryan County, it is important to understand why projects like these are needed. As you can see from this slide, Georgia attracts many businesses, which in turn bring jobs. Our lifestyle and standard of living are just 2 reasons companies choose Georgia, and our skilled, educated workforce supports it. As Georgia continues to grow, Georgia DOT is committed to responding when economic development opportunities are presented, or when there is planned growth that requires action to ensure safe and more efficient access for the traveling public. The proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange projects were developed with these considerations in mind. These proposed projects will support the megasite development in Bryan County that will increase traffic through this corridor. The main features of these 3 Georgia DOT projects include widening US 280 with the addition of 5 roundabouts, constructing a new frontage road along I-16, and adding a new interchange at I-16 and Old Cuyler Road. At this stage, we are meeting with stakeholders, hosting a public information open house where we are accepting public comments through January the 20th, conducting environmental work, and drafting initial design concepts. The mega-site development will provide thousands of jobs for the region and will be dependent on optimal access for motorists. The proposed improvements will offer several benefits to the corridor, including providing congestion relief, diverting traffic away from other local roads and intersections, providing more efficient access to the interstate system, and improving operations to accommodate future traffic volumes. In addition, the design-build method being used to complete the projects will encourage greater delivery efficiency and support accelerated schedules. The project team has developed a preliminary concept display for each proposed project. Here you see the preliminary concept display for the I-16 Frontage Road project that would provide more efficient access to the new economic development already under construction. The new roadway would consist of 4 lanes and a center median. By accommodating traffic generated by the mega-site development, the new frontage road would ease traffic congestion in the area. Preliminary concept displays for each of the proposed projects are available in the virtual meeting room on the project website. Please take a moment to visit the web address you see on your screen for a closer look. When you are reviewing the concept displays, keep in mind that the details are subject to change as these proposed projects move through the design-build process. The US 280 widening project preliminary concept display shown here illustrates the proposed widening of US 280 from the 2 lanes to 4 lanes from southwest of Olive Branch Road to just north of Oracle Parkway. In addition to roadway widening, roundabouts will be constructed at the intersections of the new frontage road, Dillon Drive, both interstate ramps, and Oracle Parkway. These types of improvements help to reduce crashes and improve operations at these intersections. The US 280 widening project would also provide congestion relief due to anticipated future traffic volumes. Again, visit the project website for a closer look, keeping in mind that each of these concept displays is not yet final and serves as a high-level overview of each project. Lastly, the preliminary concept display for the I-16 at Old Cuyler Road Interchange project outlines a proposed new interchange southeast of the existing Jernigan Road overpass. The project would realign Old Cuyler and Jernigan roads and include a new bridge over I-16. In addition, the project would construct roundabouts on Old Cuyler Road at the I-16 ramp intersections, as well as the intersection with the new I-16 Frontage Road project. The I-16 at Old Cuyler Road Interchange project would improve traffic operations by diverting traffic away from the existing I-16 interchange at US 280 and other local roads. It would also help accommodate future traffic generated by the new economic development in this area. If you have questions about any of these preliminary concept displays for the proposed projects, we encourage you to ask our subject matter experts during our question and answer portion of this virtual meeting. As you can see on the project timelines, all 3 proposed projects are going through the environmental process and public comment period together. However, they are not all on the same timeline for construction. Design build team selection on PI 0019-452, the new I-16 Frontage Road project, will take place this year, followed by the start of construction by the end of the year. The next steps on the US 280 widening project are design build team selection and start of construction, which will take place in 2024. And construction of the proposed new I-16 interchange at Old Cuyler Road, PI 0019-451, is not scheduled to begin until 2025, with a public hearing open house taking place in 2023, followed by the design build team selection. It is important to note that the schedule for each of these proposed projects is subject to change. Georgia Department of Transportation is responsible for reviewing projects and filing appropriate documentation to ensure that all projects comply with applicable federal and state laws and regulations. Because the new I-16 Old Cuyler Road Interchange Project 0019451 is funded through the Federal Highway Administration, the team will follow the National Environmental Policy Act, also called NEPA process. The other two projects, US 280 Widening Project 0016618 and the new I-16 Frontage Road Project 0019452, will follow the Georgia Environmental Policy Act, or JEPA, environmental process. The environmental and design teams and other subject matter experts meet extensively during the design phase of a project to coordinate the best design options to avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts to identified resources. We also conduct public meetings, like the one today, to allow the public to provide comments on the projects. If you have any questions about environmental impacts, we encourage you to either ask our project's experts and/or submit an official comment. And that brings us to today for this virtual presentation for our public information open house. On the project website, we encourage you to visit the virtual meeting room platform. There you will be able to view project information on the environmental process, current concept layouts, anticipated right-of-way needs, as well as other project details that you might find at an in-person Georgia DOT open house. Once you have viewed the materials, you will also have the opportunity to provide comments on the 3 proposed projects. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you. Now we will go over how to navigate the interactive public information open house virtual meeting room platform. Thank you again.
Thanks for that, Ron. As you can see on your screen, there's a lot of material for public review and comment. To accommodate this, GDOT has dedicated a website to showcase the concept design, layouts, and other details for your review. The project team wants to ensure visitors have the best user experience, so let's take a tour of the project website. Once on the website, under the public participation section, click to enter the virtual meeting room to explore different informational stations. When you first enter, you will be greeted by Natalie Dale with GDOT Communications in the welcome station. Natalie provides a great overview of the virtual meeting room platform and how best to navigate this space. You might consider starting there. The virtual rooms provide a good deal of information about these 3 projects. The type of information you can find includes the proposed project design concepts and typical sections, informational materials on environmental impacts such as noise and air, and potential property acquisitions, as well as methods for submitting your comments, which is the most important reason why we're here today. The last station of the virtual meeting room provides methods for submitting comments through January 20th. You can, however, send an email, leave a voicemail, or mail in a comment about one or all of the projects listed via the method shown here. In addition to this virtual session, GDOT is hosting an in-person public information open house tomorrow, January 10th, from 5 to 7 p.m. That's at the Bryan County Board of Education, which is 8810 Highway 280 East in Black Creek, Georgia. So hopefully y'all can join us in person as well. During this open house, you're going to be able to view the preliminary concept displays and project information, ask questions of the same subject matter experts you see on your screen today, and most importantly, leave a comment. If you need any accommodation or require materials in accessible formats, you can contact the District Planning and Programming Liaison for GDOT's District 5, who is Katie Proctor, at 912-530-4457 or kproctor@dot.ga.gov. GDOT encourages comment on any aspect of these projects. Your robust feedback ensures that decisions are made in consideration of and to the benefit of public needs and preferences. For those of you who may have joined us late, we're going to review a few ground rules to ensure we maximize your time and get your questions answered accurately and thoughtfully. During this session, you're going to remain on mute. That's just to reduce the risk of background noise. However, you can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A feature. We urge you to keep your questions concise and specific to these 3 projects. Also, please use appropriate language. Please note that we may group similar questions together. If we don't get to your question or the question involves a more detailed technical type response than we can provide during this time frame, don't worry. We'll make sure to follow up using the contact information you provided. But keep in mind, if you use the option to ask a question anonymously and we don't get to your question during this session, we won't have a way to follow up with you. So it's very important to provide your name and contact information when submitting a question. Also, please note that all comments submitted will be part of the official public record. Because this is a virtual meeting, it's important to use a strong Wi-Fi or reliable wired connection. If you get disconnected, you can always log back into the session. Okay, and we've entered the Q&A portion of this meeting. It doesn't look like we have any official submitted questions yet, so we're just gonna run through how to navigate this space, which is extremely helpful on our GDOT website platform. So as you can see, it's the main project page. This is going to continue to live throughout the duration of these 3 projects there in Bryan County. So once you get to the web page, you're going to scroll down and look for the virtual meeting room. You see Ron Nelson's avatar there with GDOT Office of Alternative Delivery. So you're going to click and enter that meeting room. And there's Natalie Dale that we talked about earlier with GDOT Communications that provides a wealth of information through the welcome video to tell you how to best navigate this space. It's a virtual version of what you'll see tomorrow if you come join us in person at the Board of Education. There's fact sheets, you see the combined handout there, and you see the overall project view, which that encompasses the entire interchange, the proposed frontage road, and also the new interchange at Old Cuyler Road. And if you look to the right side of your screen, you'll notice different tabs that are project specific. So just for example, we'll go to US 280 first and click on that one. The same deal, you see another friendly avatar, which is Marlo Clowers, one of our lead managers within the Office of Alternative Delivery at GDOT. Same deal, you see the proposed typical sections you can click on. You can zoom into a PDF of the proposed design layout, which is very helpful. Also a project-specific handout, which really gets down into what's out there now, the conditions we're facing, and also the development of the proposal to improve things as it relates to things adjacent to the Bryan County megasite. Folks may have questions about environmental impacts, so that's another tab that you can click on. And you see Amber Phillips with GDOT there on the environmental impact. So any questions you have there, you see an environmental board you can click on and learn more information. Also, you have a property acquisition tab. Folks that may live in this area curious about right-of-way and how that process works, we break that down for you. And most importantly is the comment station that's at the bottom right. So we want to hear from you, and that's my avatar right there. Click on the comment card form. It just takes 3 to 5 minutes to fill that out and really let us know what you're thinking about, what your concerns are, or if you have positive support to the project. We want everything, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's important to us to get that feedback. So looks like we do have a few questions now we can start to go through. Okay, Ron. So first one is, when will construction begin? So Ron, what are we looking like as far as the schedule for these 3 projects?
First of all, I'd like to say that this is a great question, Kyle. Everybody needs to know when these projects are actually going to get started. So we're currently in procurement in our project here with the Frontage Road project. So that project is scheduled to begin later this year with work beginning in late 23.
And the project is due to move forward and become completed in Q4 of 24. So when it comes to our second project that'll move through, which is our US 280 widening project, that project is going to also move through procurement later this year, and we should see work actually taking place in 24. And that project is scheduled to be completed Q3 of 2025. And then our last project, which is our third project, the biggest of them all, the large interchange project along I-16. That project's not due to get started until 2025 with a completion. We're looking at in Q3 of 2027 at this point. So that's the schedule we have. Again, a great question. Hope I was able to answer it sufficiently.
Thanks
You
for
get
that,
that,
Ron.
Kyle?
Yeah, I got that. That was really helpful. And folks should know it's going to be pretty busy in this corridor, starting late in 2023 and in the coming years, just to build these things out to not only serve you, the daily drivers, but also the anticipated traffic volumes that we think we're going to see in this area. So checking out the chat box now to see some other questions that we may have. I'll throw this one to you, Ron. Will Highway 280 be closed during construction?
As far as overall closure, absolutely not. That particular project, the 280 widening project that actually moves from Olive Branch Road to the south, which is a southern project limits, and then up to Oracal Parkway north of I-16 will be our northern project limits. We can anticipate some type of intermediate single lane closures during the course of construction, but we will be sensitive to the commuter traffic. So we will take all that into consideration when developing when the contract will be allowed to close lanes. Single lane closure is more of a flagging operation. So I hope that satisfies the question. It was a great question. Folks need to know how their commutes are going to be impacted, or just trying to travel to see family or anybody in the local area down here. So a great question. I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ron. And it looks like we have one published from Greg. So thank you for tuning in, Greg. I'm going to read this one and then kick it to Matt to help us answer it. Is there information as to where Highway 280 will start? Meaning I live on Aspen Lane. How far down our road will the widening of 280 take from the existing road? So Matt, could you help us with that one?
Sure, not a problem. The US 280 project will begin at Olive Branch Road and will extend northward across the interstate and end at Oracle Parkway Interstate Center. Widening along 280 will be to the west, maintaining the existing lanes. The impacts to Aspen Lane will include the side road tie-in to the improvements. Thanks, Kyle.
Awesome. Hopefully that got your answer, Greg. And while we wait for a few more questions to publish, just wanted to call y'all's attention to the screen in front of you, which is additional ways to get plugged in on how to visit that website that we went through earlier. Also, you see the project dedicated voicemail up as well, and you can find all that information that's very helpful to get connected, as well as the location of our in-person version of what we're doing today, tomorrow from 5 to 7. So let's see here if we got any other ones published. Okay, still waiting on a few more to come in. Well, I'll fire one off, and this will be probably a traffic question. So after I read this one, if we could kick it to Jonathan Langley from a traffic design perspective. Folks looking at the layouts Jonathan, have seen a lot of roundabouts, specifically on 280. I think we're getting close to 5. We may be at 5 proposed throughout the corridor. Could you kind of break down the reasoning behind having those roundabouts in the proposal?
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that. And so I think we're talking mostly with this question about the area around US 280. And there are a number of roundabouts that are adjacent to each other, especially in the vicinity of the interchange with I-16. And so as we start to look at that, it's a very logical question to ask, well, why so many roundabouts? And so what I'd like to do is start by talking a little bit about the process at a very high level. How is the decision made to make a roundabout versus a signalized intersection? And then I want to talk a little bit about the frequency that you're seeing in this area as well. So first, how is it decided when a design is being created? How is it decided that this intersection could be a roundabout versus a signalized intersection, or a stop sign for that matter? What we do is a number of different traffic modeling analyses. And so the engineers will gather information about the existing conditions, who's using the area, what kind of traffic is going to be there. And then they're also going to look at the future conditions. In this case, we know that there is a decent amount of development that is happening in this area, some very large developments. And so we would also look at that future traffic pattern, who is going to be using it, and which ways are they going to be traveling through the different intersections at each location. From that point, there is a specific analysis that is done to look at whether a signalized intersection or a roundabout will perform more effectively in these locations. Of course, we also want to think about things like safety, the operations of the area there, and then just overall impacts to the areas next to where the construction would be. In this case, in many of these locations that we are talking about, and I think we'll look at the layout here in a few minutes. In this location, it so happens that operationally, it has been more effective to create these roundabouts as compared to a traffic signal. And that is because of their operational efficiency and the way vehicles can enter and exit a roundabout without having to come to a stop or wait for the other direction to go. Now, to the second part of the question about why are there multiple roundabouts next to each other when they are right in the same vicinity. What happens is when you install one kind of intersection, in this case, a roundabout, when you have another intersection that is very close to that, so two intersections or more very close to each other in a short distance, if you start mixing and matching a roundabout and a signalized intersection, or a roundabout and a stop sign, what ends up happening is that helps to break down the operational efficiency. So traffic that could be moving smoothly through a roundabout would then potentially have to stop at a traffic signal. And so you will find oftentimes when you have these different intersections or roundabouts in close proximity to each other, you will find that they are often chosen or selected to be the same kind of intersection control. So in this case, roundabouts. And we know in this project that there are going to be roundabouts around the I-16 ramps, and there are also roundabouts near the US 280 in the frontage road. So it looks like on the screen we have a diagram, and of course you can, as Kyle was telling us a moment ago, you can go to the website and look at this yourself. You can download this PDF and zoom into it and take a closer look. But on this specific layout, you see the area near I-16, which is generally, well, now it's towards the right side of our screen. You see a number of roundabouts. There's a pair of roundabouts at the Frontage Road and Dillon Drive. And there's also a pair of roundabouts at the interchange ramps. And finally, there is a roundabout further to the right side of our screen. And just to orient yourself, north is actually to the right, or roughly to the right and up a little bit in this plot that we're looking at. So you see how close together these different intersections are to each other. If we were to mix and match roundabouts and signalized intersections, they would not have the same level of operational efficiency. So I know that was a very long question, but I think a lot of people probably, or long answer, I think a lot of people probably have some variation of this question. So I wanted to take my time and walk through some of the rationale. First, why could they be selected as roundabouts? And that has to do with the modeling that we have completed. And then the second part is just the proximity. You have these intersections close to each other. They're going to operate most efficiently when you pair them up like this. So very good question. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. And Greg had actually sent us another question right after I asked mine, which is kind of what we hit on. So lucky on that, but I will read through Greg's comment. Lastly, based on previous things we have heard, there will be a roundabout at 280 and 80 in Black Creek at the post office. So does that mean if I'm coming from the Black Creek post office and through Blitchton in 3 years, I will go through 7 roundabouts in 2 miles? He gave us the exclamation, which is 7 roundabouts. I mean, that's definitely something unique, I know, in this part of things, Greg. With that many roundabouts, people are going to be dizzy going to work. Well, we don't think you're going to be dizzy. Like Jonathan said, for operations, it's going to support things. It's going to be able to move large trucks. And also you as a daily driver, it's also going to serve as a traffic calming mechanism. So it'll be able to process a lot of cars, but it's going to reduce that speed, reduce the possibility for angled crashes, and make things much safer. So yes, some big plans coming not only with our work proposed here on 280, but also some future projects with the county and GDOT District 5. So let's see. And Greg, thank you for shooting us some questions. I will read this one. It is, our community water well will likely be impacted. How is this being handled? Again, Greg is on Aspen Lane. So Ron, could you help us out with this one, just related to the community water well and how there may be impacts?
Kyle, that's a good question. I think we're at the point now where we don't have enough information necessarily to 100% answer it. But I maybe could ask right away, could Phil Copeland maybe give us a little idea about this particular situation, maybe how it's going to be handled at this point? That's something you might be able to go into on this right here, Phil, and speak more definitively on it.
Sure, Ron, and thank you, Greg, for your question. I'm gathering from the question that the Aspen Lane residences are served by a private water system that runs down Aspen Lane. And as was mentioned earlier, the layouts on the project virtual room shows that the right-of-way acquisition and the majority of the widening will be happening on the west side of US 280. So with the information that we have available right now, we cannot determine exactly whether this water system would be impacted, but we'll continue to look and try to make that determination. And if it is impacted with the tie-in of Aspen Lane back to US 280, during our negotiations for the right-of-way with that water system, we would include compensation for that water system to be restored to its operational capacity as it is today. So in a nutshell, we don't know whether it's impacted as of today, but if it is, during the right-of-way negotiations, we would make sure that that impact was addressed and that the water system was provided the funds to restore its operation. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Phil. And again, that was a great question. I appreciate you being able to elaborate on that, Phil, and hopefully we provided a good, sufficient answer at this point. Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Phil and Ron. So still looking for, looks like we got another one. We have one from Jennifer. Thanks for joining us today. Our question is, a year or so ago, there was discussion of a roundabout at 280 and Wilma Edwards Road. Is that project still planned? Sorry if that was already mentioned and I missed it. So Ron, do we know of any, now we're talking about roundabouts, plans for 280 at Wilma Edwards Road?
Kyle, another good question. Something that we'll probably have to look into to provide a more specific, it is outside of our scope on this particular project. It does move further towards on the, I guess you'd say, the south side of Black Creek, moving in heavily into the Ellabelle area. So Wilma Edwards and I believe the Bill Futch Road that comes out in that same vicinity. We'd have to look in to see, but I believe that's going to be something associated with another office we have within the Department of Transportation, our Office of Program Delivery. But that project, as far as I know, is still in the planning stages as far as moving forward. But I do not know exactly, I'm sorry, regarding any type of additional scheduled delivery on that particular job. But a great question. Thank you so much for asking.
Appreciate that, Ron. And Jennifer, make sure to leave your contact information and we will follow up to get you a 100% answer on that. Like Ron said, I believe there is a concept out there for that. And again, 280 is going to have a lot of roundabouts in the future, and it's going to be good for operations and good for safety. All right, let's see if we have any other questions come in yet. So don't see any right now. Well, I think I'm going to fire off another one. This one is going to be for Amber, just talking through our environmental side of things. So Amber, could you just kind of talk about the general process for evaluating noise impacts when it comes to major projects such as these?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so what we do is we study and analyze noise impacts for a qualifying federally funded project. So we will study it for the new interchange. And the way that whole process works is that we create a noise model to simulate the project that is going to be constructed, since it doesn't exist right now. And we'll look at that model and insert the traffic that is proposed to be on that roadway. And we'll project that out about 20 years from now to determine if there will be noise impacts. And that's determined based on the federal noise abatement criteria, or it's called the NAC. You might hear people call it that. And a residential impact is approaching the NAC, which is 66 decibels. If somebody is approaching that level and is impacted at 66 decibels, then we study to determine if we can construct noise barriers. And that's, can we feasibly put them in? Will they work? Will they reduce noise impacts? And do the citizens that are receiving a benefit from those barriers, would they work, and do they want those walls? And so that's kind of the process that we go through to evaluate those. And for that project, we mentioned that we're expecting to go out to a public hearing in the last quarter of 2023. And so at that point, we would be able to have results for citizens to review and see if any noise walls are proposed as part of this project. Thank you so much for the question.
Great, thanks, Amber. And hopefully that gave y'all an idea of the extensive process that we go through to evaluate conditions as it relates to environmental impacts. And we still have up on the screen that main concept for the 280 project. So you see the roundabouts that we talked about that Greg was asking the previous questions for. We mentioned the safety aspects of the roundabout. So these will just be multi-lane designs because we're looking at going from 2 to 4 lanes on 280. So basic rules of a roundabout is always yield to those in the circle. So you're going to start to slow down, be aware, be alert when you pull up to the roundabout. First thing you're going to do as you approach is look to your left. If there's vehicles already kind of crowded in the circle, you're going to wait a few seconds for a safe gap. Then you're going to enter, and then you're going to signal your exit. Thankfully, a lot of people seem to forget about that when they're in the roundabout. It's helpful to other drivers to signal your intention when you're inside that circle. So yield to your left, and those in the circle always have the right of way. So y'all just remember that. And I'm going to kick a question to Matt next. So if we could go and kind of zoom in to the Olive Branch side of the layout. And Matt, this question is going to be related to folks may wonder what a truck, it looks like a runaround of some sort in this area. Could you break that down for us on what that is and why we're proposing it?
Thanks, Kyle. I'd love to. That is a jug handle, and it's going to be servicing a U-turn movement for anyone that misses their turn, their left turn, specifically for the frontage road, or you see that blue with the signal there. If going into the mega site, if anyone were to miss their turn in, they would be able to make an immediate right into the jug handle, and then be able to make another right onto Olive Branch, and then subsequently make another left back onto 280, and then be able to U-turn, in a sense, back into the direction they were intended to go. Thanks for the question, Kyle.
I appreciate that, Matt. And we're going to take a few seconds to run through the project description video again, which Ron Nelson, who y'all have heard from today, who's our main project lead from the Office of Alternative Delivery. So let's run through that again and hear from Ron.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining us today to learn more about the proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange improvements. Let's get started. Before we get into the details of this package of proposed projects in Bryan County, it is important to understand why projects like these are needed. As you can see from this slide, Georgia attracts many businesses, which in turn bring jobs. Our lifestyle and standard of living are just two reasons companies choose Georgia, and our skilled, educated workforce supports it. As Georgia continues to grow, Georgia DOT is committed to responding when economic development opportunities are presented, or when there is planned growth that requires action to ensure safe and more efficient access for the traveling public. The proposed US 280 widening, I-16 frontage road, and I-16 at Old Cuyler Road interchange projects were developed with these considerations in mind. These proposed projects will support the mega site development in Bryan County that will increase traffic through this corridor. The main features of these three Georgia DOT projects include widening US 280 with the addition of 5 roundabouts, constructing a new frontage road along I-16, and adding a new interchange at I-16 and Old Cuyler Road. At this stage, we are meeting with stakeholders, hosting a public information open house where we are accepting public comments through January the 20th, conducting environmental work, and drafting initial design concepts. The mega site development will provide thousands of jobs for the region and will be dependent on optimal access for motorists. The proposed improvements will offer several benefits to the corridor, including providing congestion relief, diverting traffic away from other local roads and intersections, providing more efficient access to the interstate system, and improving operations to accommodate future traffic volumes. In addition, the design-build method being used to complete the projects will encourage greater delivery efficiency and support accelerated schedules. The project team has developed a preliminary concept display for each proposed project. Here you see the preliminary concept display for the I-16 frontage road project that would provide more efficient access to the new economic development already under construction. The new roadway would consist of 4 lanes and a center median. By accommodating traffic generated by the mega site development, the new frontage road would ease traffic congestion in the area. Preliminary concept displays for each of the proposed projects are available in the virtual meeting room on the project website. Please take a moment to visit the web address you see on your screen for a closer look. When you're reviewing the concept displays, keep in mind that the details are subject to change as these proposed projects move through the design-build process. The US 280 widening project preliminary concept display shown here illustrates the proposed widening of US 280 from the 2 lanes to 4 lanes from southwest of Olive Branch Road to just north of Oracle Parkway. In addition to roadway widening, roundabouts will be constructed at the intersections of the new Frontage Road, Dillon Drive, both interstate ramps, and Oracle Parkway. These types of improvements help to reduce crashes and improve operations at these intersections. The US 280 widening project would also provide congestion relief due to anticipated future traffic volumes. Again, visit the project website for a closer look, keeping in mind that each of these concept displays is not yet final and serves as a high-level overview of each project. Lastly, the preliminary concept display for the I-16 at Old Cuyler Road Interchange project outlines a proposed new interchange southeast of the existing Jernigan Road overpass. The project would realign Old Cuyler and Jernigan roads and include a new bridge over I-16. In addition, the project would construct roundabouts on Old Cuyler Road at the I-16 ramp intersections, as well as the intersection with the new I-16 Frontage Road project. The I-16 at Old Cuyler Road Interchange project would improve traffic operations by diverting traffic away from the existing I-16 interchange at US 280 and other local roads. It would also help accommodate future traffic generated by the new economic development in this area. If you have questions about any of these preliminary concept displays for the proposed projects, we encourage you to ask our subject matter experts during our question and answer portion of this virtual meeting. As you can see on the project timelines, all three proposed projects are going through the environmental process and public comment period together. However, they are not all on the same timeline for construction. Design build team selection on PI 0019-452, the new I-16 Frontage Road project, will take place this year, followed by the start of construction by the end of the year. The next steps on the US 280 widening project are design build team selection and start of construction, which will take place in 2024. And construction of the proposed new I-16 interchange at Old Cuyler Road, PI 0019-451, is not scheduled to begin until 2025, with a public hearing open house taking place in 2023, followed by the design build team selection. It is important to note that the schedule for each of these proposed projects is subject to change. Georgia Department of Transportation is responsible for reviewing projects and filing appropriate documentation to ensure that all projects comply with applicable federal and state laws and regulations. Because the new I-16 at Old Cuyler Road Interchange Project 0019-451 is funded through the Federal Highway Administration, the team will follow the National Environmental Policy Act, also called NEPA process. The other two projects, US 280 widening project 0016-618 and the new I-16 Frontage Road project 0019-452, will follow the Georgia Environmental Policy Act, or JEPA, environmental process. The environmental and design teams and other subject matter experts meet extensively during the design phase of a project to coordinate the best design options to avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts to identified resources. We also conduct public meetings, like the one today, to allow the public to provide comments on the projects. If you have any questions about environmental impacts, we encourage you to either ask our project's experts and/or submit an official comment. And that brings us to today for this virtual presentation for our Public Information Open House. On the project website, we encourage you to visit the virtual meeting room platform. There you will be able to view project information on the environmental process, current concept layouts, anticipated right-of-way needs, as well as other project details that you might find at an in-person Georgia DOT open house. Once you have viewed the materials, you will also have the opportunity to provide comments on the three proposed projects. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you. Now we will go over how to navigate the interactive public information open house virtual meeting room platform. Thank you again.
Oh, that was helpful to see that, basically the overview of these three projects as it pertains to the Bryan County improvements that we're looking at. So, thank you, Greg, for firing another question in here. After I read this one, it's going to go to Matt to help us walk through things. So this pertains to Dillon Drive. Could the two that are close together, meaning the roundabouts at Dillon, Transport Road and the Frontage Road, be one larger with more exits and entrances? It seems tight. Got to practice my NASCAR skills. I appreciate that, Greg. We don't want you driving NASCAR through here, so please be safe. But Matt, could you just talk through the design of that Dillon roundabout specifically?
Sure. The preliminary design does combine two roundabouts near Dillon, the transport road, in a teardrop configuration, which essentially is making one large roundabout that function just like one singular one. Another reason they can't be any closer would be the proximity of the cross streets. So it's designed in a way to minimize impacts to the surrounding parcels, and it will effectively act as a large singular roundabout.
Hopefully that cleared it up for you, Greg, as it relates to that Dillon Drive roundabout proposal. So looks like we have another question that came in from Sheila. This is going to be a property acquisition, which is a right-of-way question. So I'm going to kick this to Phil after reading it. Sheila wants to know, do you have a list of properties to be impacted, and has the acquisition process already started? So Phil, can you help us there?
Sure. Thank you, Kyle. And Sheila, thank you for your question. There is not a list per se of the properties that are impacted, but if you visit the concept layouts that were mentioned earlier in the virtual meeting room, on those concept layouts, there are lines that represent the existing property lines, and those are shown in a lighter baby blue line that shows what we understand to be the existing property boundaries. If a property is anticipated to have a right-of-way acquisition, there will be a heavier red line that encroaches into those properties that indicates what we anticipate to be the right-of-way acquisition as we know it today. Again, as we further refine the design and the concept, we'll be able to determine exactly what the right-of-way needs are. So again, if you visit the right-of-way concepts, you will see property representations, red lines to indicate where properties are anticipated to be impacted. And as to the schedule for the property acquisitions, we are not in the process of acquiring just yet, but we do anticipate to be entering into those activities somewhere around mid-2023 for the properties along US 280. And we anticipate those acquisition activities extending on into calendar year 2024. Also on the virtual meeting room, there is the tab for property acquisitions. And on that property acquisitions tab, there are two important information documents that can help you navigate what the property acquisition looks like. There is a right-of-way brochure that outlines some of the details that take place during the acquisition process. And there is an actual one-page display that talks about the acquisition process as a whole, kind of breaks it down into a 5-step process that we go through. So again, I would encourage you, if you're a property owner, to visit the concept layouts, to identify your property, to see if there is an anticipated impact, and then if there is, to visit the property acquisition page that will walk you through the steps. And as has been mentioned earlier, the meeting tomorrow night, we will have right-of-way representatives in attendance and available to answer any specific property questions that you may have if your property is impacted. So again, view the concepts to see whether or not your property is potentially impacted. And then again, please join us tomorrow night and meet with our right-of-way SME to talk about those specific impacts. Thank you.
Sheila, hopefully that was helpful just to break down the right-of-way process and really what you're looking at when you see these concept layouts. So we just pulled up one of the 3 projects. We hadn't really discussed the old Cuyler Road new interchange proposal much as of yet. So you can see on your screen how this ties in to that proposed frontage road, and we've got more roundabouts. So just like we have proposed at the ramp terminals at 280, there would also be roundabouts as it currently sits in this design at the ramp terminals and also at the intersection of the new frontage road. So just generally, Ron, from kind of a high level, folks may be curious why we need a new interchange here. Do you just kind of want to talk through how this ties in to the overall positive aspects of this project for traffic management?
Absolutely, Kyle. So these projects, they'll all tie together. So we're anticipating, as you can imagine, a large corporation like the Hyundai Corporation coming in. It's going to be pretty drastic as far as how it's going to affect the way this area has been put together from an operational standpoint. So with the frontage road bringing traffic to or from US 280 over parallel to the eastbound behind the way station vicinity, and then it'll carry it a little further east by about maybe a mile or so. And then we anticipate being able to relieve some of that congestion from having to go back into at the exit 143, which is the existing interstate exit in Bryan County on I-16, by providing another interchange to the east that will help facilitate traffic, coming out of the Savannah area, coming westbound, and then allowing that return traffic to move back towards the Savannah area eastbound on I-16. So that they'll just all work in concert. All this has been carefully planned and orchestrated. I think you come to that live in person tomorrow evening, PIOH there in Bryan County. I think you'll see much more evidence of how these projects have been carefully planned, very well thought out, trying to develop and understand how to meet the future traffic congestion needs in this area to relieve those issues. So there's a lot of forethought going into what's taking place here with all 3 projects together. I hope that answers that question there, Kyle. Good question.
Appreciate it, Ron. Just gotta keep you on your toes there. So like we talked about before, and Jonathan Langley gave us a high level view of why the roundabouts were chosen over on 280. Like y'all see here, we have 3 proposed at the new interchange. I'm gonna just kick another question to Matt, just generally kind of high level. Matt, folks may be curious too about why roundabouts would be chosen at interstate ramps. Any background there on how effective they are and why they would also potentially fit here at Old Cuyler Road?
Thanks, Kyle. Roundabouts are generally chosen because it lowers the amount of impact point or conflict points, and they also help circulate traffic a lot better than a standard signal. You basically have a continuous flow no matter what's going on. As far as for interstate ramps, I'd have to probably throw that to Jonathan Langley to see if he has something on the traffic side. But for a design, it does. It's a lot safer and funnel traffic a lot better.
Sure, Matt, and I can add some detail to that as well from the traffic side. So if we think about a traffic pattern for people who are using an interchange, and really I'm gonna talk specifically about this area in particular, and then also pull in the bigger picture of what's happening at US 280. So that will help us to understand the benefit of the roundabouts at this location, and also kind of the bigger picture of what's happening with the traffic here. So if we think about this as one larger system, right now, the only option that people have is to drive to the exit at US 280, to exit at that interchange, and then to make their way to the local destinations by using that one location. Now, as we've talked about, there are future developments that are anticipated in this area that could bring significantly more traffic to the area. So when that happens, one of the strategies that can help to distribute that traffic is to have more than one option in an area for the interstate traffic to exit that may be closer or more efficient for where they are, or what time of day it is, or even what kind of traffic it is. So we look at the traffic patterns, we look at who's using the roads and who's using them at what time. So you may have passenger vehicles that are more likely to be using these interchanges at specific times. And then you may have truck traffic that chooses to use these locations at different times. So one of the benefits of having this interchange in this location is that it provides a second alternative for the traffic that's going to be coming to this area with potentially greater demand. In addition to that, when you start thinking about this interchange in particular at Old Cuyler, you may have different traffic patterns crossing each other at different times of day. So you could have someone coming from the west to exit in this location and head towards the frontage road. You could also have someone coming from the east and deciding to go up towards the north along Old Cuyler. And what the roundabouts do is, without having to use a traffic signal, it allows for the free flow of traffic that Matt was describing a moment ago. And I think Kyle did a very good job of describing how to use a roundabout earlier in our discussion here. And so as the different traffic patterns evolve throughout the day or change throughout the day, the roundabout is a proven method to distribute that traffic and to allow the users to navigate through the roundabout to go to the direction that they need to without any kind of major disruptions. So hopefully that provides a little bit of additional perspective, specifically when it comes to the traffic patterns in this area, thinking about it in terms of US 280 and how this gives additional options for people who are traveling in this area to exit I-16. Thank you for the question.
I appreciate that, Jonathan. And we had another one come in just related generally to the public involvement open house, which is part of the process that we're doing today. Basically, is this the first PIOH that y'all have held, and how will the community be informed following the PIOH? So yes, this is the first official meeting. There's a live session that we're doing. There's also a second meeting, which is an in-person, which is tomorrow in that 280 corridor at the Board of Ed. We also have a website which counts as an additional virtual open house footprint, and you have until January 20th on the site that we described today to leave us your comments, leave feedback. That site is going to continue to live. The overall project site will continue to be updated as we get closer to awarding these projects in the coming years, and with construction updates too. So that's the best way, just to get plugged in via the website. And make sure y'all follow us on our social media channels as well, Georgia DOT. We're very active on Facebook, Instagram, and we have a dedicated Georgia DOT Southeast Facebook page that our district communications manager, Jill Nagel, does a great job keeping updated. So that's an additional way to stay plugged in on what's happening on 280 Frontage Road and also Old Cuyler. And while we're here, I'm going to ask another environmental question. Amber touched on this a little bit earlier, but Amber, as it relates to Old Cuyler Road, you had mentioned a public hearing, basically, another version of an open house coming as required for a new interchange. Could you just remind us what that is and why it's needed?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So as you heard earlier in the presentation, these projects follow different processes. And so the I-16 at Old Cuyler Road project is a federally funded project, and as such, it will follow the NEPA process. And as part of that process, we do our environmental document, which is an environmental assessment. And when we do that, we're also required to go out to a public hearing open house where everyone will get the opportunity to review the environmental document, take a look at the proposed impacts and mitigations for those projects, or for this, in this case, the Old Cuyler Road project. And so that public hearing open house is expected to take place in the later Q4 of 2023. And of course, that will be announced and advertised similarly to the way this meeting was advertised. So hopefully everyone will keep following the project and attend that meeting when it occurs. Thank you so much for the question.
Awesome. So looks like we have another one that came in, just a general question that says, will these projects require a permit? So Ron, what's the best way to get through that one, just related to permitting on these jobs that are proposed?
The permitting, Kyle, that is associated with these projects, the Frontage Road project already has a permit. The Joint Development Authority moved through that exercise ahead of the department coming on board. So we do appreciate that group moving in that area and taking care of that business for us. So U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has already provided the required full permitting for the Frontage Road. We will be moving through the JEPA exercise for the 280 project, which is different than any sort of federal requirements. But now when you get into the interchange itself, project 3 for project EA, that'll move into a different category, being a federal highway administration project. So we'll move through more of the NEPA process that'll require full permitting for the old Cuyler interchange project. It's a good question, Kyle. So I hope that adequately answered it. I didn't know if we need any kind of backup information from anyone else, but that's what I've got, Kyle.
I appreciate that, Ron. That definitely answered things. And Ron, while I got you, I'm going to go back to you. We just zoomed into the Oracle Parkway side of things on the 280 job. And folks may be curious, they've seen a signal go in at the end of 2022 there. We've got it proposed as a roundabout. Just based on your knowledge of the area, Ron, how are things going with that signal, and how do we think they'll improve once things are said and done and a roundabout's installed?
Yes, sir. So Kyle, that temporary signal that'll be in place, be associated with our US 280 widening project, falls at the north limits of our US 280 widening project. And GDOT put that temporary signal in to continue to improve the operations there for that particular intersection until such time that the design build team can come in and finalize design and determine what size roundabout's going to be necessary there. So there'll be a changeover with our 280 widening project at that location. I did hear that once this temporary signal came online, that it was receiving positive feedback. I haven't heard anything necessarily negative. I've been through that intersection several times. I think it's probably something that's welcomed with the amount of traffic that continues to increase in this area. So having that truck stop, rest stop facility there, I believe that is going to be a very welcome site to be in place until such time better things come along when we get our end result of a fully operational roundabout at that particular location. I hope that answers the question, Kyle. It was as I do reside in this area, I do get to ride through here, so I'm kind of a little bit partial when it comes to what's taking place there. I think we're doing a very good job of trying to relieve some of the congestion in this area.
Thanks for that, Ron. And that's just a reminder too. We have a statewide team that works on this project. We've also got a project manager that really lives in the backyard, in that same vicinity of Bryan County. So they know these roads. The men and women at GDOT are focused on making things better because a lot of us live in these same communities. So we have the same vested interest that y'all do to ensure that we deliver things the best way we can and the safest way we can. So it looks like we had one come in while Ron was finishing up. Will I be notified if my property is needed? So this sounds like a right-of-way question that we're going to direct to Mr. Phil Copeland.
Thank you, Kyle. And yes, that is a very good question. As the team continues to develop the concept Part of that process is for them to develop a set of right-of-way plans, and those will be a more detailed set of plans that will show the specific right-of-way impacts to each individual property. So as those right-of-way plans are developed, a right-of-way representative, it will either be a GDOT right-of-way employee or a consultant, could potentially be a consultant hired by the department to perform the right-of-way acquisitions. They will reach out to each individually impacted property owner to schedule appointments, introduce themselves, and walk them through the process and the expectations of what will occur as the acquisition moves forward. So yes, as individual impacted property owners, you will be notified probably somewhere in mid-2023 as to the impacts and exactly how the acquisition process will proceed. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Phil. Next question here. I'm actually going to tag in Marlo Clowers, who works with Ron within our GDOT Office of Alternative Delivery, to talk about from kind of a sky view. Folks may be seeing design build, hear about procurement, delivery models, and that kind of stuff. Marlo, what are the advantages of delivering these projects under that framework? Basically, what is design build?
Thank you, Kyle. That's a very good question. Design build is one of the tools that GDOT has in its toolbox to deliver projects. Typically, design build projects allow more flexibility in that there are overlapping pre-construction and construction activities. So design and construction can occur simultaneously. You gain a lot of schedule efficiencies in that. And there's also greater innovation as far as design components with the design build methodology. So with a project like this suite of projects that will complement this development that's coming to the Bryan County area, using design build to deliver these projects allows to get these projects completed at a faster pace than a traditional delivery method. And that way it can complement the bringing online of that mega site development in Bryan County. So GDOT is using all its tools available to them, to us, our design build methods, as well as partnering with, I think Ron has mentioned, the Joint Development Authority and the Department of Economic Development, Bryan County, so that we can get these roadway improvements implemented quickly. That was a good question. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Marlo. And we're still waiting on a few more questions to come in. So we have some time left before 1:30. So y'all be sure to put your question in that Q&A feature and give us your contact information. But while we wait, we have the online virtual room up again. We're just going to kind of walk through that to show you some of the great things you can do in this space. So once you enter the virtual meeting room, again, you see Natalie Dale with GDOT Communications. She gives a good breakdown on kind of what this format is and why we're doing it and the best ways to utilize that. So we're just going to click on a few of the displays. So this first screen will do the project overview display. So you can give that a click. This is also mobile friendly, and you're able to click on these documents to enlarge them to make sure you can see the great information that we have. You see a breakdown of that overall footprint, which covers that exit 143, the frontage road proposal, and also that new proposed interchange at Old Cuyler. You saw the project schedule, which Ryan talked about earlier in his address about these jobs. You can kind of see where the tiered approach is of what's coming first. So as a reminder, frontage road will come first, followed shortly later by the 280 project. And then the final one will be that new proposed interchange at Old Cuyler. So going from there, let's click on that 280 widening tab on the right. So that seems to be the most popular question topic today. And we just heard from Marlo, who's a program manager with Alternative Delivery. She talked about the great ways that that program and its delivery model makes things efficient on these jobs, gets them done in a quick fashion, making good use of the tax dollars, and also innovative concepts within those projects. So you can click on the typical section there. So we'll click on that. That's basically showing what it's going to look like. That's a rendering schematic going from 2 to 4 lanes. You know, it shows what that section is going to be in the middle too. You see a box truck, which we're, you know, seeing a lot of those, and 18-wheelers, no doubt, coming through this area, as well as y'all in the future. So it'll be able to handle everybody, specifically with the roundabouts. And the main thing too on this page, on those right tabs, is that comment section. That's what we really want you to go to let us understand what your concerns are. Again, positive, negative, we want it all. So doesn't take long to click on there. You can, as you can see, if you just do a general comment about everything, you can select that, or you could do project specific comments. So this website is going to continue to live on. You can only make comments up until January 20th. So I wanted to remind everybody about that. In addition to that, which we'll talk about that when we wrap up, is our in-person meeting, which is happening tomorrow. All of us will be down in your backyard at the Board of Education from 5 to 7, talking about the same topics. We're just going to be you know, live and in your face and not on Teams. So hopefully that will be beneficial to y'all as well. Let's see, do we have any other comments that have published since here? But we still got a few to come in. So I'll ask another one, and I'm gonna give this one to Ron. Talking again, Ron, just generally about the roundabouts. I mean, you live in the Southeast Georgia area. Georgia DOT's continued to install more and more just because they've proven themselves. Do you want to talk to the folks that may be a little wary of a roundabout? Maybe they've never driven through one.
Absolutely, Kyle. So, you know, I'm there again, kind of partial to the department as far as trying to go through problem-solving actions and trying to better understand. So I do, you know, ask folks in and around the area. Some folks I'm related to, some folks hopefully I'm not. And folks, I just want to, you know, just want to get there. You just take a basic litmus test and see how they like or dislike or what they know or don't know. But you know, the fact of the matter is these roundabouts are just going to absolutely improve this area and make it where it is going to be easier and better, safer to navigate through these intersections. You know, and just there again, just from a layperson standpoint as well, we've had issues associated with weather. Anytime we've got hurricane warnings, there's always the absolute threat of power outages. And when it comes to trying to maintain our operations within the department, it's always good to know that we've got the opportunity for traffic to continue to move where it's allowed to continue to move through, as long as it's not closed off, because there won't be any traffic signals necessarily at these locations. So we'll have the opportunity for traffic to continue to move. Of course, we'll go out and clear the roadway and ensure that it's safe to travel across. But, you know, that's just one benefit that I can continue to think of and continue to talk about. In addition to all the features and operational improvements these roundabouts are going to bring to the US 280 corridor and the interchange at I-16 and Old Cuyler as well. So don't think it's a situation where these folks down here can't necessarily pick up and better understand how the roundabouts work. It's just something along the lines of some minimal change with traffic patterns, and I'm sure these folks will be able to pick up those changes and continue to have an opportunity to move from where they currently are to their destination when they're driving, whether it's commuting or going to see family or, you know, just trying to go to the store on occasion. But I think this is a very positive thing moving forward. And I think these are some of the operational features that we'll see more and more as the improvements in the Savannah area continue to move as I'd like to say, towards the west to some of these folks here who live in these areas. So I hope it is continued to be shined upon favorably. But Kyle, that's been my take on this, and I hope that's currently the take with everybody that's joining today. And I hope it's also an opportunity tomorrow to have more conversation and discussion with some of these same good folks here and any of the good folks in and around the Ella Bell area as well. I hope that kind of went towards an answer for you, Kyle. I'm just there again, me being in this area and driving through here at least twice a day. I'm kind of partial to monitoring and listening to folks and just trying to lend an ear to them every chance I can to maybe learn from these folks as well to see what we can do to better improve and deliver these projects for the traveling public.
Awesome. That's definitely what we want, Ron. And I know folks appreciate you being open to receiving that feedback. And that's why we're here today. So, make sure y'all get comments in. We got 10 more minutes, and make sure y'all go to the website or see us in person tomorrow. So, Ron, while we were chatting, one more came in. I think I'm going to start this one with Matt. If he needs to direct other places, he can. Matt, this question is, how will trucks be able to navigate the roundabouts? I know it seems like the projections in the project handout are talking about additional thousands of trucks once things are finalized with the development. How will they be able to navigate these roundabouts?
Thanks, Kyle. That's actually a great question. The roundabouts being implemented on this project will be fairly traditional multi-lane roundabouts with a raised central island. Because of the large volumes of trucks anticipated here, the roundabouts are being designed so that 2 trucks can safely circulate through the roundabout without encroaching on themselves within the roundabout or the adjacent travel lanes. We do a lot of modeling when we lay these out to make sure they can safely navigate all turning movements within the roundabout. I hope that answered your question, Kyle. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Matt. And while we're on this layout and talking about how trucks are going to navigate things, just generally for someone who might be curious, I'm going to kick a next question to Jonathan Langley. As far as this 280 corridor, Jonathan, how would someone pass through all these roundabouts? Let's just say I was going south to north through this area. How would I drive through it?
Absolutely. So I think we can put the layout on the screen. Thank you very much. And what we can do is look at this and visualize as if we were driving through this together. So what we have on the screen is the US 280. And as Kyle was describing, we would go from south to north. So south, again, is towards the left side of the screen that you're looking at right now. And so we're going to be traveling from left towards right, or from south towards north, generally. And so as we start on the left, here near Groover Hill Road, we are already at a point where the road will have been widened from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. And as you look at that location, you see that the median there is what we call a 2-way left turn lane in the center, 2-way left turn lane center. So that means that there is not a raised median at the very left side of the screen. There's a turn lane that you could move into, and if you needed to take a left, you could do that from that center turn lane. As we move from the left side of the screen, headed north towards the right side of the screen, we start to approach the roundabouts. And so as we approach the first roundabout, which is located at the Frontage Road, that is in blue. It's the first roadway in blue that you see. It's called Adjacent Project, and it's called Frontage Road on here. As you approach that first roundabout, you will slow down, you will check to your left, and you will yield as you enter the roundabout, assuming there's no one already in there. And in this exercise, we're going all the way to the right. So you would continue around the first roundabout and into the middle of these pairing of roundabouts. We called this a teardrop roundabout previously, and that's because even though you see 2 circle shapes in here, they actually operate as one roundabout that feels like it's pinched at the middle. And so as we go through that area between the 2 first roundabouts, there's a median And so you would not be able to go around the full circle of the first one. You would actually travel into the second roundabout. And then in this case, you would continue on to the right or to the north. And as you get closer to the interstate, where their interstates are, the interstate ramps are now, you would encounter another pairing of roundabouts. And these also operate as a single pair of roundabouts. So similar to the teardrop roundabout to the left. So you would circumnavigate the next roundabout, the bridge. As you cross over the bridge, that bridge actually is not being widened. You see that the lines stop in that area there over the Interstate 16. So that space is remaining the same, no bridge widening. You would continue further to the right, go through the next roundabout. And then at this point, you're headed towards Oracal, and still 2 lanes in each direction. Medians crossing there with a break to make some left turns, and then you would enter the final roundabout and continue on to the north beyond it. To the right side of the page, as you continue off the page, what would happen is that 2 lanes then starts to narrow back down to 1 lane in each direction as you continue further to the north. So that provides just a very high level overview of what it would be like, what it would feel like to travel through each of these roundabouts. If at any point in the way you were to decide that you needed to turn around and go back in the other direction, any one of these pairings of circular roundabouts could be used to effectively make a U-turn and head back in the other direction as well. So if, for example, you missed a turn, or maybe you were coming out of a property and you needed to take a left, but you can only go right, the roundabouts give you that full accessibility to go any direction that you need to in a very short area. So Kyle, hopefully that answers your question. I can certainly understand why people would be interested to understand how to use these roundabouts. And I do encourage those who to want to understand better to go to the website, open these PDFs, take a look at it. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be happy to get back to you, or you can come see us at the in-person meeting tomorrow. So thank you for that question.
Awesome, Jonathan. Thanks for taking us through that from kind of a bird's eye perspective. So I got 3 more minutes left. We do have one question in here, and I'm going to answer this a little bit, Ron, then I'm going to kick to you. It's right now it takes forever to get off I-16 here at this exit at 280. How will traffic get better? I know we're potentially working on a interim type solution, before these projects are delivered and complete to help with the ramps. Obviously, we're showing now in the layouts that we have the roundabouts. It's going to be in the final configuration. How would you like to talk about how things are going to get better with these projects as it relates to that interchange, Ron?
As we're continuing to refine the design associated with this project, as far as the widening 280, we're also attempting to take into consideration what the current traffic condition and patterns are. And we're evaluating the intersection there at the westbound off-ramp and 280, and then also the eastbound off-ramp and 280. So we're taking into consideration from an interim standpoint what those operations look like, what traffic patterns look like from a peak hour standpoint, morning, afternoon, evening. And I do believe that we'll have some type of end result probably in the near future, but don't really know exactly what those numbers are going to necessarily show from a definitive standpoint. But we do know that we're going to make some type of an improvement there, and we should have something moving forward probably in the not too near future as far as guidance and direction. And then we'll be able to share more of that as we move forward with the public to better understand what our design team has kind of come up with from an interim standpoint until that widening and those final roundabouts at those ramp terminals are actually in place. I hope that answers that question, Kyle. I was trying to give you as much as I possibly could with what I can possibly discuss at this point with how things are kind of moving through.
Right. I think that's great, Ron. Just the transparency that we do here to let folks know what we're dealing with now, that we're looking at a, potential interim solution as well as the long-term improvements with these projects. So we're closing down in the final seconds here. So we have a reminder to everybody about how to submit your comments up on the screen. Please visit us at that website location. We also have a project email. We have a project hotline. You can use snail mail if you need to deliver your thoughts. And please come see us if you can from 5 to 7 tomorrow, January 10th at the Bryan County Board of Education. And a reminder, the official comment period closes on January 20th. So definitely appreciate the time of all the citizens that joined us today, folks that are on camera, our subject matter experts, folks behind the camera that y'all don't see. A lot of work went into this, so we're thankful for that, and thank y'all for letting us come reach you with information on these great improvements in Bryan County.